Welcome to the BudsnReality Show. I'm Sean Collins, the guy with a lot to say, and I'm here with my guest, Mr. Ben Weir from New Hampshire. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me on the show.
It's actually been a long time coming. We've been talking about this for a while.
Yeah.
You were busy, and then I was busy, and we're all busy, and all of a sudden you chimed in on something one day that I posted, and you're like, "Hey, let's do the thing," and I'm like, "Hell yeah, let's do the thing."
Yeah, we made it work. We made it happen. Porkfest happened just like a week ago, and that kind of took me out for a whole week too. And I don't know, it's been crazy.
Dude, Porkfest, I'm so jealous. You live out there and you actually do a tent out there, which I saw all the videos and stuff. You guys had an awesome time. I wish I
Yeah.
could have gone, but last year when Mr. Ren Brindley was trying to get me to go there, I had just come off a major surgery. I wasn't going anywhere. And
And yeah.
and then this year, it was one of those things where I'm playing catch up from last year from missing all that. Well, I'm self-employed. So when I miss work, I don't get paid.
Right.
So it was one of those things where it's summertime, I gotta go get that bread. Next year I'm going. You can bank on that. Y'all, you heard it here just now. I'm going to Porkfest next year, and I'm gonna hang out in the emo Caucus tent because they look like they had the best time. So
We had the best tent for sure. I was told this by many people. If you like music, metal, any alternative music at all, uh, the emo hub was the place to be. We were we had like a basically how Porkfest is like it's a festival. They have a bunch of speakers, they have a bunch of cool stuff going on at the pavilion, at different other venues across that is run by the Free State Project. But then like you have all the RV sites, right? And all the RV sites, like you can get them and then like just keep your RV on it and stay on them and sleep on them. But a lot of people, they'll turn their RV site into a hub, is what it's called. And it's basically like you can be a vendor and sell food. You can somebody had like a big tent where they just literally did like gambling and poker and games the whole time. Some people like set up for their nonprofits, for there's a bunch of people there like doing gold backs, and gold backs is a alternative currency there basically, if you don't know what gold backs are. But and then my tent does everything music themed basically. And pretty much anybody's welcome there, and we have a bar, and sell drinks and food. We had emo brunch. We sold a bunch of really great food. And I held like some cool like music events, like people performing. We had Dairy Queen Story Hour, which was a blast, where Jeremy Kaufman just wore a wig and read Dr. Seuss, and we all ate ice cream while he read Dr. Seuss to a bunch of adults. It's pretty funny.
that's
Um,
fantastic.
and then we had emo night, we had new metal night. I did punk rock karaoke. We had like it whole list of things, and next year we're planning to run probably two RV hubs right next to each other and just make it a little bit bigger, more people, and kind of amp it up a little bit more. So I think this year was a huge success. We had a great time. All the events went really, really well, and we're just kind of get build off of that. So
That's awesome, man. I love that. Now, one of the main reasons I had you on, well, not one of the main reasons, I just wanted to have you on just to have you on because we share a common thread when it comes to music, politics, stuff like that. But like you played in bands, dog. Like you kind of did the thing for a while.
yeah,
And you know, this is what I'm going to say is that it is extremely hard to make it as a musician. Like the
it is.
chances the chances of making it as a musician are literally slim to none, honestly. It's kind of like being a sports player. Like your chances of making it in the NBA, the NFL, MLB, whatever, NHL, yeah, your odds of getting in there are probably not so good.
Yeah,
So
it is. It's crazy. It is very. It's a hard industry to break into and to stay relevant in. That's the thing. Is like musicians have to constantly be releasing content, or it's really easy to forget about them because you need, it's kind of like this is actually a reason why most bands now are not releasing full albums. They're doing single, then album drop, or single, and most of the time the singles are accompanied by a music video a couple weeks later. It really turns like their life cycle for one album into 2 years again. Whereas like right now, if they just released an album, it's like a 6 month lifespan. And then like, they're going to be expected to put something else out really soon, um, just consistent content is demanded by people these days, or else people will just move on. There's just so many bands out there. There's a lot of competition, and even the biggest bands will be forgotten. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, but you got to a point where like you were touring and you were
Yeah.
touring with some big name bands. One of your bands was Tonight We Rise, and I almost want to feel like I may or may not have seen you guys at some point.
It's
Um,
possible. So Tonight We Rise, we have played across, I mean, that band took me through 42 states, I think. And we've been
wow.
all basically coast to coast, a bunch of big festivals. Um, really, really good times. It started off, as kind of just a project. We just wanted to play, make music. We're a band of like all kinds of different background and influences. Like my background is more punk and emo. We had one of my guys was more like into like Alice in Chains and Soundgarden. Another guy was like really into 80s metal, so he's like Eddie Van Halen type, stuff. And then the other guy's like more like soft and alternative. And then we had a metalcore as our drummer, and we kind of like blended it all together to make this like perfect fusion baby of emo, metal, and metalcore and punk that like worked for almost any lineup. So this is why we were getting so many opportunities to play with bigger bands that might not have necessarily been our genre. We don't really have a set genre, I don't think. It's just alternative metal, punk, emo, whatever. Um, and it just kind of like let us do anything. Like we've played huge festivals with Korn and Stone Sour and A Day to Remember and all these guys. And then we'd also play like shows with like I've played huge Christian music festivals like with like Switchfoot, and there's like bands like Metro Station, which is like super poppy emo, like
Was Under Oath there? Because Under Oath used to be hardcore
I've
Christian
I've never
back
played
in
with
the day.
Under Oath, but I have played the last show that I ever played was with The Almost, and that was a sold out show in Denver. And The Almost is Aaron Gillespie, who's the drummer from Under Oath. That's
Yeah.
his other band, so that's his project. So they're awesome. They're kind of more like punky though. So
Okay.
yeah,
I love that, man. So it's kind of funny that you bring, you say your band is all, all those genres mixed into one, which kind of reminds me of the Taste of Chaos tour
yeah.
from way back when. Like if anybody who was into the emo metalcore movement back in like, 2003, 4, 5 era, there was a Taste of Chaos tour that went around that, had all kinds of bands from the Used to Killswitch Engage to My Chemical Romance. Like I went to some of those tours. As a matter of fact, I got to see the Used in My Chemical Romance play a rendition of Under Pressure live,
yeah. That's
and that
awesome.
was super dope. And then Burt McCracken, who is the lead singer of the
Of
Used,
the
and
Used, yeah.
I
Yep.
can't remember the lead singer of My Chemical Romance's name, but
Gerard Way. Yeah.
yeah, after they finished the song, they decided to make out on stage in front of the whole crowd, and I was like,
Wow.
oh, okay, whatever, but that's fine. But like, it kind of reminds me of that Taste of Chaos tour because it was a little bit of this and a little bit of that. I mean, Atreyu was on that, and back in the day, like I loved Atreyu. Holy
our,
shit!
our
Like,
first real like big festival that we ever got to play was we were grinding hard. We had only been a band for about a year and a half, and we are consistently at a local venue level selling at least 100 to 150 tickets just off of my band alone. And that's just because it's all about like networking. And if the bands are going out and doing the work, like I would be like, all right, here's what's up. You four guys just go out and sell 10, 15 tickets each to whoever, and I'll sell the rest of them. So I would go out and I would sell like 100 tickets myself, to all kinds of people, and we'd have like a huge crowd every show. And then eventually got to the point where, like, obviously our name was kind of making rounds. Venues were excited that, there was a local band that was actually trying to sell tickets because they're making money too. And then they would give us opportunities to play with bands because that other bands weren't like that. Maybe other bands had been around longer, but they weren't working hard. So, they let us take the show, and open for them because it was kind of a mutual thing. And then eventually we did play at Vans Warped Tour in 2015, in the mountain region, and it was like the greatest experience ever. It was such a good time. So it just we kept doing it like that, like DIY. I never actually got paid from my music because we all kind of had this mutual understanding. Like, we love making music. We love traveling and touring. We love recording, all of it. It's expensive. So, we pretty much just agreed, like, all this money stays in the band. Anything that we make, it stays here. So we'd play shows, we'd make money from that, we'd sell merch, we'd tour, and it would all go into traveling, like tour bus, or not tour bus, but like a tour van, renting a tour van, gas, stuff like that. And it got us around. Very rarely did I ever have to come out of pocket for anything when we were touring. Sometimes for gas, but most of the time I was able to secure guarantees from venues that were enough to get us through to the next town, and then some, so at least that's always the goal of like a DIY band. We had been offered a couple labels a couple different times, including
what
like
label? Just curious. What label?
one of them was like Victory Records, which,
oh my god, those guys are great.
yeah. So them, and then Manic Dog Records or something, and then one other label, I can't remember. There's a couple other smaller labels too that were chimed in, but they were really just distribution deals. They weren't real record labels. But ultimately we didn't really want to sign. We weren't like in any position. Like, we were all at this point mid-20s, and I don't know. We all kind of knew like this isn't going to be our careers. So we would have to like take a huge step back and step away from our jobs, and I don't know. It just didn't look realistic, and it's not something really that I don't even think that I would have wanted. Maybe I would have wanted it, but I don't know. It's hard to say. It's hard to look back on that stuff now, because I'm like 10 years older, and I'm like, I probably should have done that. I probably should have taken a few years to just tour and make music, but I don't regret anything that we did. It was a really good time. We absolutely like did. I think that my band did everything it set out to do, and I can't ask for anything more, because our music was all about like just kind of being different. We definitely had some political light to it. Like, we wanted to bring like a different flavor to the scene in terms of like, standing up for what you believe, not just against certain things, but also, against government pressure and politically as well, fight back. And we also had like a side of us that was very like, we were big on suicide prevention and awareness. So, that was kind of a cause that we took under. We did a lot of things with different organizations that would, kind of give people resources if they were struggling with depression, stuff like that, drug addiction. Eventually, I still have a lot of those contacts and those ties, and I still do a lot of like kind of work in that area, for suicide prevention and awareness. Yeah, I've had, I can't even tell you, like, definitely dozens of people that have told me that our music or my band's influence in their life, just even being friends with them, has helped them get through times where they didn't try to hurt themselves or kill themselves. So if that was the only point that my band had in its time on this earth, then that's more than I could have ever asked for. So,
that's kind of wild that you say that, which is what you're saying is very awesome, by the way. But like, when I look back at emo music, right? Like, so I'm kind of a like I had my time. I had my emo phase. There was a couple bands
It's
I
not a
really
phase.
well, no, because I've been listening to it a lot lately,
Right.
honestly, like so much, and we'll get into that later. But like, when it comes to like suicide prevention and stuff, if you go back to like early emo stuff, a lot of that was like telling their significant other they want them to die or kill themselves, or
Mm,
like for instance, brand
yeah.
new, which I love that band. Actually, I've been listening to them a lot lately. But there's a verse in the song, in one of their songs, something about the Tommy gun. I can't remember. It was a whole big like name for the name of the song. But it was, I hope you come down with something they can't diagnose or have the cure for.
Mm.
So like, and that was a lot of emo lyrics, like for instance, Silverstein, who happened to be on Victory Records that you
They're one
brought
of my
up,
favorite bands. Yeah, I love Silverstein.
and smash into pieces, never again I'll slit my throat with the knife I pulled out of my spine.
Yeah.
Like, whoa.
Yeah.
What's up,
It's
dude?
a the this is no, but this is like reality for a lot of people though. Like, like these like lyrics that are being like spewed out by artists and musicians, there's a reason that they resonated with so many people. It's because a lot of people actually feel that all the time. You know what I mean? And like they
Right.
really can relate to a lot of these lyrics, and they might be a little bit overreactionary, a little over emotional, exaggerated, maybe even. But for some people, it's not. Some people, that's actually like how they feel, and just being able to like relate to somebody in that way. It is like, when you are on stage, you do have, it's kind of like a pulpit, you're kind of a preacher a little bit, and you kind of stand up there. You got to understand, like, people are listening to what you say. People are looking at you for advice, and they're looking to you for their enjoyment, their to get them through whatever they're getting through. You're there to help them through whatever they're doing. They're the reason they're at your show, because they are working through something, or they're just trying to have fun. Either way, you have their ears. So you should take advantage of that. You should use it to help them, and to lift people up, and to encourage people to support each other, and definitely create a community. And I think that's like kind of what I saw my band as, is we were trying to create a community. It wasn't necessarily like just a fan base. Our fans all became friends with each other. You know what I mean? They all just became friends. They'd see each other at shows. It was great. This is also what I'm trying to do with the emo caucus. We're all in different camps, but we're all just kind of creating a community. We're creating something where for people can get together, talk about music that they like, bitch about things they don't like, and and work through it, but still respect each other as individuals and just have fun. So
Now, when it came to touring, because touring's hard, touring's
Mhm.
very hard, and people don't understand that. Like, especially for somebody like yourself who was in a DIY band, like people think it's this big extravagant things, and there's hotel parties, and you think Motley Crue in the '80s, or shit like that. But a lot of this stuff is bands touring in a van. Most of the time, they can't afford a hotel room or somewhere to sleep, so they're all sleeping on top of each other, in some sort of van or RV or whatever it may be. You know, how was touring for you? Like, are those some of the best memories of your life? Are those some of the like memories where like, shit, man, I wish I wouldn't have done that?
Some of them were great. Some of them weren't so great. There was a time of my life where I was playing music at venues so often, and out at shows so much, and getting offered so many free drinks, all week long, that I was like an alcoholic for a while. So it actually took its turn and like made me really depressed. And and I was drinking way too much. I ended up, from that point, I took like 3 almost 4 years off of complete drinking completely. I got sober. Now I kind of drink socially. I'll have a couple beers here and there. I really don't get messed up anymore. But um, there was times that were great and horrible, and touring definitely was some of the best times of my life. I got to see so many parts of the country I never thought I'd be able to see. And since I booked everything DIY, I booked all the tours myself. So if there was a new part of the country that I wanted to see, I would just make sure the next tour went that direction. You know what I mean? So it was it was really good times. Sometimes it got a little bit too much, like during the too much drinking phase, like I remember uh peeing in circles in parking lot, almost falling asleep on top of the tour van a few times. And yeah, those were a little bit too crazy. I had to take a step back after that one. But um other than that, like I think that it actually helped me a lot to get sober for a few years, and it helped me like I think that I was a better example to people who were watching my band and supporting my band, because I was always fully in my mind at concerts and stuff. And not that I was ever out of it at my own concerts. I would always kind of like pretty much stay sober at my shows because, I like to have conversation. I really didn't drink too much at my own concerts. But, if I was out watching someone else's band, which I would go to concerts like 3 or 4 days minimum every week, so it was like I was basically living at music venues at this point in my life, um, which has its fun side too. Um, but I don't know. Like I said, we the Denver music scene is fantastic. So like everyone there kind of sees each other as family. You kind of always know when something's going on there. I miss the Denver music scene. Actually, it's a really great place. There's not really anything like that out here in New England area. So um, I wish that could get revitalized a little bit, but I don't know.
So would you say Denver's probably your favorite place you ever played?
Favorite place I ever played? I don't know about that. It's definitely my favorite. I mean, that was my home base. So, this is where the majority of the best memories happened. It's also probably where the majority of the bad memories happened too, because I lived there. So,
Fair enough.
I miss Denver. I miss Colorado a lot. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what my favorite place would be. I think playing High Elevation Festival with Corn and Stone Sour and Falling in Reverse and all those guys, that was one of the highlights of my life. But also, we did a really cool tour that came to the Northeast, and we played some really interesting venues on that tour. We played at like a indoor skate park, which was sick, and people were like skating and moshing while we were playing.
That's dope.
One of the stops was at like an abandoned house in the middle of nowhere in an industrial area. We were like, are we gonna get murdered? But no, dude, like abandoned house. There was electricity, but no running water. And you know, the whole upstairs was just like one big room, and it just completely filled with kids. Like completely filled with kids. Middle of nowhere. And it was so wild because there was probably like 40 people at least in this like packed area, and my band was performing in front of them. They were like moshing and stage diving, all kinds of stuff during our show. And like we had like this one fan that came out and was like, here, like I saw you posted online that you like cinnamon rolls. They like made us homemade cinnamon rolls. Like something I'll never
Oh, shit.
forget.
Okay.
And then we played in like New York. The venue in New York was really cool. Like I don't know, like that was like one of my favorite tours. So
That's awesome, man. Now, like, so you said you've toured with some like very big name bands. You just obviously listed off Korn and some other guys like that. Who is your absolute favorite to tour with, and who is the absolute worst to tour with?
hmm. um I don't think I've ever had a horrible experience touring with anybody. um I think the biggest, the best, my favorite band that we ever played with um was actually these guys called Assuming We Survive. We played a ton of shows with these guys. They're based out of Orange County. They're like more of a mid-tier band. Their singer is actually also one of the singers for Zebrahead. I don't know if you're familiar with Zebrahead. They just played When We Were Young festival. They're doing like a UK tour right now. Zebrahead's pretty big, but those guys were awesome. Like they're basically like another family, a brotherhood to my band. Um, and they were great. And then I think, speaking not speaking ill of Aaron Gillespie at all, of Under Oath and Almost, but I will say that when we played the shows with him, he was kind of an asshole. So surprisingly, I was actually surprised. I thought he'd be very like humble and down to earth, and he was kind of an asshole. So that one was kind of a disappointment because I really I grew up on Under Oath. So,
Say one of my favorite concerts I ever went to of all time. Get ready for this. You're gonna want to hang on to your seat for this. As I Lay Dying, Between the Buried and Me, and Under Oath.
As I Lay Dying, man. Nice.
Dude, first off, As I Lay Dying is one of my favorite bands of all time, hands down. It's not even close. Jordan Mancino is one of the best drummers.
Pre-murder trial. Pre-murder trial.
And post. So check this out, dude. So I saw them a bunch. Like before all that. I saw them with All That Remains quite a few times, actually.
Nice.
Which I partied with All That Remains before. Phil would never remember me because it's so long ago. But one of my buddy's bands opened up for them while they were here in Michigan. So it was one of those things where I was backstage partying. The one dude used to cut my hair when I had hair. The guitar player in the band used to, cut my hair. That's awesome. So that's how it all happened or whatever. But he doesn't remember, obviously this was over 10 years ago. But dude, Under Oath, Between the Buried and Me, As I Lay Dying, that show was insanity. That was at a very, very close-knit, small venue just down the road from where I live right now. Actually, it's not in Detroit. It's in a little town called Royal Oak. And that was, oh my God, one of my favorite shows ever. And that's when I learned that Under Oath was actually a very tight band.
Yeah.
They just went from one song to another with barely any breaks, no click, no nothing. They just did it. And I was like, damn, these guys are a lot better than I gave them credit for. Because really, I was there to see As I Lay Dying and Between the Buried and Me. I love those guys.
Yeah, they're fantastic. These bands didn't get famous for no reason, for sure. They're just they're very good. They're talented musicians. I actually think that I don't know. Do you know who The Chariot is? Have you heard of them?
I know the name, but
dude, they had a phase where they were just they were only around for several years. It was really the beginning years of Under Oath is when The Chariot was around.
But so the original singer of Under Oath?
No. Different band entirely. But they were probably the best. They were the best show I've ever seen. I saw them play in a church basement. I want to say it was in 2006, way back in the day. Is that some youth center for kids or something? And one of the best shows ever played. And they broke up a couple years later, and I still live in the nostalgia of that band. And I don't know, it kind of reminded me of this because I think that we here's my spiel. I think that there's not a lot of new music that can imitate what was happening 10 years ago. There's just not. The new bands, they're trying to be what's happening right now. They're not living 10 years ago and those bands were living, and they were imitating somebody else. But nostalgia is killing us right now, because if you look at every music lineup, every festival, you could have seen it 10 years ago. Every festival lineup that you see right now, it's all something that's been basically regurgitated. And I'm not complaining because I love all those bands, right? But this is my thoughts are that I think that as a music scene, it's not in a very healthy place, because in terms of the alternative punk and indie, emo, metal, all this genre, I think that it's it needs to take another look back in order to go forward again, because it's a jumbled up mess. I haven't heard any good music in years, with the exception of maybe Beartooth coming out with a really good album recently, but even Beartooth has changed. So
I'm with you. I think I personally believe that new music's garbage, especially when it comes to like anything that's punk or rock or metal driven. And hip hop, forget about it. Like outside of like Kendrick Lamar, you know, I
Yeah.
don't really care. Like I'm an OG. Like I'm in my mid 40s. I grew up with 90s hip hop. That was, middle school, high school for me. Um, but also like alternative rock was in there for me. Like I remember back in the day when Lollapalooza was a touring festival. It wasn't just
Mm.
some garbage that was in a weekend in Chicago. And dude, I saw some of the best bands ever on those tours. Alice in Chains, Soundgarden, Stone Temple Pilots, Mudhoney, all those guys. Anything out of Seattle, that was relevant in the '90s was touring with Lollapalooza. And then later on, and I was always kind of a punk rock guy too. Like I'm a huge, especially old school punk. Like I got Minor Threat records behind me right now.
Love
Like
Minor Threat. Yeah.
they're
Fugazi is one of my favorites too.
and I got Fugazi. I'm a big vinyl collector. But Fugazi, God, they were awesome.
They're,
But
they're, they're like
they
they're like
were
one
my
of my favorite bands of all time. They're so good.
yeah,
They really changed the game.
it really did. But then the '90s came, and then they came out with the Warp Tour,
Yeah.
which you had brought up earlier. Now in the mid to late '90s, let me tell you some bands that were going on in Warp Tour where I used to.
Eminem played at Warp Tour. Yeah. Did you know that? Eminem played one of the first
Oh,
Warp
I did
Tours.
not know that. Now,
Yeah,
why did
dude.
I miss that? How did I miss that? I'm here in Detroit with Eminem. Like, how
I'm
did I miss
telling
that?
you, like it is crazy. Like I'm pretty familiar with Warp Tour history, dude. Like they have had some absolute banger acts going through Warp Tour. Like, I mean, if you think about like just pop, they always usually have like at least one or two pop bands. I mean, I remember Black Eyed Peas has played Warp Tour. Um, freaking Katy Perry did Warp Tour one time.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. Um, even like more recently, like people like BB Rexa, who just played at the Super Bowl the other year, like pop
Okay.
star.
Yep.
It's like, but like there's always been like pretty much all like punk and alternative bands going into like metalcore and hardcore. And then they throw in like one or two pop or rappers that they're like, these guys are doing something. Then they end up like being Eminem. It's
Right.
crazy, so
We used to, so the Warp Tour way back in the day used to come through a place called Pine Knob.
mm,
Pine Knob is in Clarkston, Michigan. It's an outdoor venue. They have a giant parking lot. So that's where they used to have the old school Ozfest too, because they could put up different stages and parking lots and shit like that. Well, in the '90s, I had to get my fix of NoFX. I'm a big
I
NoFX
love
guy.
No Effects. Yeah. They're on
Oh
the
my,
last tour right now.
yeah, which I'm debating whether I want to go because Fat Mike is
You're
calling.
close enough to Riot Fest. You should just go to Riot Fest.
I might do that too, but like Fat Mike really pissed me off during the whole COVID shit and all
Yeah,
that.
yeah, me too.
Just
Yeah.
like a lot of other punk rockers did. Like, holy shit! So punk rock is all about, and so I'm punk rock. It has my whole heart. It really does, and it's one of the few genres that does it. It's punk rock, it's metal, and it's '90s hip hop. Those ones own my heartstrings forever.
Mhm.
Man, did a majority of the punk rock population go soft and turn to conformity during COVID, including no effects.
Yeah.
Like Fat
Actually,
Mike,
I was writing a book, which I'm still like, it's going to be a 4-year process because I just don't pay enough attention to it. But um, called All My Favorite Punk Bands Are Statists. And No Effects is one of the bands I talk about. Same as
yes,
Green Day. And it's,
yes,
it's
Dropkick
crazy.
Murphys. Like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah, it's so wild. The Offspring kicking out their drummer because he didn't get the shot. Like, it's
Which
so
was the
crazy.
craziest thing? So let's talk about that. I want to talk about that a little bit when on this show with you.
Sure.
The whole thing about the Offspring and their drummer was, he didn't get the poke, they fired him, but they left out an important part. He didn't just, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if somebody wants to get the poke or not, right? It just doesn't matter. It's not anybody's business. But he was allergic to something that was in the shot.
Mm.
So he couldn't take it. And they still were like, fuck you, dude. Even after decades of being together as a band, like Offspring's one of the reasons I used to go to Warped Tour. They used to play that. We
I
used to
saw
sneak
them
in,
at the final Warp Tour. Yeah.
we used to
Crazy.
sneak in at Pine Knob. Pine Knob is on a big thatch of woods, and there's a big giant hill. They have ski slopes there and stuff. It's kind of a cool little spot here in northern Oakland County. But there was a time where like you could go and sneak through the woods and get in there. Remember when I said on your thing, well, I used to sneak in the Warp Tour? That's how we used to do it. We used to go through the woods and get through the gates and then, hurry up and scurry into the crowd, and get in there. We never paid for shit, dude. I've probably stuck into a half a dozen Warp Tours, I swear to God.
That's great.
Literally. Or there was one time where they kind of got hip. Like the final year we tried to do it, they were hip and they had some security around there. So we had a sacrificial lamb that was willing to, take one for the team because they weren't going to do anything about it anyways, because they checked all your cigarette packs for weed and shit back in the day. We're like, here, take these joints in your cigarette pack. And while they're calling everybody to go check on you, we're going to scurry up in there and just kind of go. It worked. It totally worked.
Nice.
It totally worked. Like I've snuck into so many Warped Tours just like that, And it was great. Always to see like NoFX or, KMFDM back in the day or, Green Day. Green Day was cool. Like we used to see all those bands, I've been to hundreds, probably thousands of shows in my life. Honestly, I was a bachelor until I was in my 30s. So like I could just spend my money at will whenever I wanted to go, whatever shows I wanted to see, I would go see it. And I also had a very cool hookup for a while. A good buddy of mine happened to work for Live Nation.
Oh, great. Nice.
As a runner. So he was a runner. And so when these acts would come to town, he had to go get them whatever they needed, whatever it was. And he had some of the coolest stories ever. Holy shit. That's from awesome. Doing whatever. But I could get a bunch of free tickets for shit.
I love that.
Like, you know what I mean? Like I inadvertently sold weed to the Deftones while they were here. And then they got busted with it at the Canadian border right after they left.
Jeez.
These things did happen. It's crazy, but I had one of those hookups for the longest time. But, it's music is one of those things where it's life to me. I grew up with musicians. My biological father is a musician. He played guitar and sang. He still does to this day, just not at a level he was when he was younger. I'm a product of rock and roll. My mom and my dad are not together. They weren't, whatever. It's one of those things. But then my mom, after him, married my stepdad who adopted me. And he was a musician who happened to play bass and sing and knows how to play guitar too. So it was one of those things where like music has always been relevant in my life. I need to inject that shit right into my veins, honestly. Like give it all to me.
Yeah, it's my lifeline, man. I understand completely. Like it's got me through a lot. I started playing bass when I was only like 11.
Oh, nice.
I was actually raised in a pretty strict household. My parents are fundamental Baptists, and they think that everything that's not sacred music is satanic worship. So playing bass was my grandma bought me the bass, and I came home with it. I don't think my parents were too happy. But regardless, they let me play it in the house, and I'd play what I wanted. And I would play what was like, back in the day, like Christian punk, Christian rock, and like, I'd listen to
some like Reliant K and
Reliant K. MXPX is still my favorite band of all time.
Wow. Okay.
And then the Tooth and Nail bands, like obviously Under Oath, Emery, stuff like that.
August Burns Red.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And that's just, it kind of progressed into, me. I became pretty rebellious. I've been pretty rebellious most of my life, I would say. And I became an anarchist when I was a teenager. Eventually, I think like, me and my parents are on good terms now, but I would say that like for most of my life, I was probably on their shit list. So,
that's funny you say that because I was actually raised hardcore Southern Baptist.
Oh, wow.
Hardcore Southern Baptist. No bad music, no bad movies, no singing, no dancing, none of that stuff. Anything that was outside of the box needed to be monitored by my parents.
Yeah.
And I'll
Yeah.
never forget when they found I had a pillowcase full of cassette tapes. I'm old
Mm.
enough for cassette tapes, ladies and gentlemen, I know. But I had a pillowcase full of cassette tapes. They were all Ice Cube and Ice T and Dr. Dre and all that stuff. And those went directly to the garbage. I was grounded forever. You know what I mean? It was one of those
Yeah.
things. I totally get where you're coming from, big time, because
And
there was no bad music at all.
I definitely like, they didn't like the music I listened to. I got away with it because, they would take us to the Christian bookstore and I would buy these Christian rock bands that were sold at the Christian bookstore. So it's like, I'd find ways to buy other music too and use LimeWire and steal shit that I wanted to listen to. But, at the same time though, like the music I was buying, I bought it at a Christian store. So like, what are they going to say about it? You know what I mean? So,
Right?
I don't know. Those were fun times, fun navigating through that whole situation. They definitely never appreciated that side of me. And even like my first band ever that played shows was actually like a Christian pop punk band. That was my first band. I played bass and I sang, and we had like, most of our songs were about like spiritual things. But it's funny because if my parents had like, they came to my first show ever, which was at like a music store, and like I said, most of the music had very spiritual themes to it. I think that show I even opened up with prayer. That's how ridiculous this was, right? So,
Okay.
and they went away from this saying like, yeah, like that was satanic. You shouldn't be playing at venues like this, secular venues in the world. And I'm just like, oh my God. But then I went off and just like, I exclusively played bars from there on out. And that band only lasted like a couple months, and then I turned it into something different. Um, my other projects were never like, I have like a spiritual side to me, but I've never been like preachy at all. So it's one of those things where it's like, you might hear things here and there that were like, maybe about certain things, but like I never was like a preacher. So I never use my music to preach about that. I would use it to talk about things like, like a lot of times there's this general message: stand up for yourself, you know, fighting, for your rights, stuff like that. Um, if you really want peace, then you have to prepare for war, type of stuff. You know what I mean? So
Right. Oh yeah. Oh
yeah.
yeah. I mean, I find myself as I get older, especially after last year. So I went through a couple things last year where I literally almost died twice.
Oh wow.
So, yeah, so it kind of brought me back to my Christian roots, and I'm very much a believer in Jesus Christ and stuff like that. I'll never shove that stuff down anybody's throat, but I do bring it up on my shows every once in a while. And anybody who wants to talk about it, I'm more than willing to talk about it. But when you go through something like that, it kind of brings you to perspective. Like, hey, it kind of brought me back to those old Southern Baptist roots, minus the hellfire and brimstone, because that's what they
Yeah.
preached on. The world was ending, the rapture was coming, we're all going to die. It was always that. I try to be a little more positive with things,
Yeah.
outside of that. But
I mean, I still hold my beliefs. I think that like some Christians might think that some things I say are heresy, but I'm going to be honest. I think the same thing about them. But the thing is, I don't like, I think that like people get too lost in the sauce sometimes. So, I think that there's some things that overlap, but over denominations, and I think that there's things that transcend denominations. I was raised kind of basically being taught that it's really just this one denomination that has it right. And I just don't think that that's true. You know what I mean? I don't think that that's true at all. And I don't know. Like I have my faith. I don't preach it at people, but I'm always open to talk to people about it. Um, in fact, I think it's fun. I was actually a missionary for 2 years back
oh,
when I was in
nice,
college. Yeah. So
very
that
awesome.
was way long ago, like 15 years ago. But it was fun. So it's I learned a lot.
That's awesome, though. That's great, and it's good to not lose your your roots. It's good to have those, grounded roots, in my opinion. People can believe whatever they want. That's fine. It's whatever, but you brought up being an anarchist. I happen to be an anarchist myself. And what a lot of Christians get mad about when I say this is that Jesus Christ was the OG anarchist.
He
As a
was.
matter of fact, he was the agorist.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ was more of an agorist than he was an anarchist. But like, and Christians will be like, no, he wasn't. He was not an anarchist. I'm like, well, do good deeds. Don't hurt people. Don't take their stuff. Take care of your community. Love your
Yeah.
neighbors. That's pretty anarchist to me.
Yeah. I mean, you can't have anarchy without the nap. I don't think so. And people think anarchism outside of our world, they think of Chaz in Seattle, which is not anarchism, that's fascism.
Right.
So
Yes.
it's really about like kind of reteaching people what it looks like, what peaceful anarchy looks like. It looks more like homesteading and community than it does like Chaz in Seattle 100% of the time. And I've done a lot of deep dives on this, and I've done a couple shows on it, even a couple of debates. And I think that it's important to, I actually just made a post about this the other day. It actually drives me insane to see people trying to push spiritual change through or cultural change through politics. I just don't think that that's possible. And I don't think that that's something that we're supposed to even really be doing. Like the initial point, like Romans 13, to pay taxes or whatever. This is what they use it for. Like, this is why you have to pay taxes, because Jesus said you had to pay taxes in Romans 13 or something. And this is not true. This is just not true. That's not what he said. And if you look back at it in the Old Testament, the only reason Israel even ever got a king was because they begged for it. It was never God's intention for them to have a king. They saw the people around them have kings and they thought, oh, I want that too. And God allowed them to have it against his will, because he's, and it was always God's intention for people to self-govern and to kind of help like self-regulate.
Yes.
We don't need some kind of like hierarchy that's a government. We don't need a spiritual hierarchy either. This goes for the church too. The church hierarchy is BS. All right. It is.
Yes. Organized religion is trash.
It is.
Honestly, organized religion is terrible. And it's the worst thing that ever happened to Christianity. It really is.
Yeah, it is. And I don't know, I could tangent about this all day. It's one of those things where it's like, I don't think, I think that like people's ability to self-govern is natural. I do think there's people that will naturally need to be led. And I don't think that necessarily means that somebody has, a natural authority over somebody else, though. That's not what I think. I think that everyone plays a part in the world, and everyone has strengths and weaknesses, and people are stronger in one side will lead on that side, and they might be weaker where someone else is strong, and the other person's going to have to lead there. And now I'm not a utopian. I don't think Incapistand's ever going to happen. It's not going to. Minarchy is not going to happen. That's just not. But I will say that I love to at least push the ideas towards people respecting individualism and promoting individual freedom, which to me, that's what anarchy is, respecting the individual and, peace and homesteading and being self-sufficient. That's what it is. So, and I don't think that that's really counter to what a lot of people in the world want even, but when they hear the word anarchy, they get triggered.
Well, because it doesn't help the matter that the media and the government, like, for fuck's sake, when BLM was burning down cities, across the United States, Donald Trump's going, the anarchists are burning down the cities. And you're like, oh boy, here we go. Like, I'm sitting there, I'm holding my bald head going, oh my God, man. This is a bad look for people like me, because I claim anarchy. Like, that's my thing. And so, when people are like, well, your people are burning down cities, I'm like, no, those are not my people. Those are criminals. Those are thugs. Anarchies are building communities. They are not tearing them down. Anarchists are building, communities. They're growing gardens. They're, getting raw milk. They're selling raw milk.
They're moving to New Hampshire.
They're moving to New Hampshire, which is the perfect segue into this because you happen to live in New Hampshire. And I really, really, really think it's important that you break this down for some of my listeners because most people don't know what's happening there. They just think New Hampshire is a state that gets a bunch of snow, which is correct, but it's a lot more than that.
Colorado got more snow than New Hampshire did this last year. So,
which is crazy. Forest Mommy, what's up, dude? What do you got to say about that? No,
right.
But like, dude, like you guys are doing it. You're doing the thing in New Hampshire. And so, and you're doing it. So I've been talking about decentralization and nullification for 2.5 years on this show. I preach it. I pound it into people's brains because I believe it's the only way we win. Now, you guys are doing something over there in the Free State, which is way like out of the realm of politics that you wouldn't believe.
Because it's definitely beyond politics. It's community building. That's really what it is. And the Free State Project's been going at it for a very long time. And I think that the reason that New Hampshire was chosen over anywhere else was because it is naturally, constitutionally, with the New Hampshire Constitution, more decentralized than any other state. New Hampshire has just over 1 million residents. And out of those 1 million residents, there's 400 state reps. That means that every state rep represents 2,500 people. That means they're representing their actual neighbors. Whereas when I lived in Sacramento, California, my state rep represented almost 600,000 people. So just on this alone, it gives people opportunities to win elections a lot easier if that's what their goal is. But also, it doesn't take much to get, enough votes to win a 2,500 person town over. You know what I mean? Like not every town is like that. Like Manchester's bigger. But for the most part, I think that this is like it's naturally constitutionally built to support decentralization. And, over the last 20 years, the Free State Project built a community of people, Republicans, Democrats, and Libertarians that respect liberty, that are libertarians. They call themselves libertarians. And they, they're running for office. I mean, I can tell you right now, just in my ward in Manchester, I have 4 friends that are running for state rep for my ward on 2 different sides, on the Republican and the Democrat side. They're all very much so libertarian. And, here's the thing is like Republicans here have learned to like, hey, libertarians, they agree with us on a lot of things and they support a lot of the libertarians that we have running for office. And they also support, the Democrats. They're shaking in their boots because a lot of them, like I'm on a Granite State extremist list, apparently. The Democrats the progressives here put together like this huge list of people who are extremists in New Hampshire because they're libertarians. So, the Democrats are scared of all the libertarians we have running incognito every single year because they can't fish them out. They're just like new names, new faces. It's really pretty comical. But I ran for county sheriff just a couple years ago. I actually ran as a libertarian. I didn't run as a Republican. If I had run as a Republican, I probably would have won. But that was not what I wanted to do. I don't want to be a county sheriff. I actually hate cops. But if I could set the tone and be the first anarchist libertarian sheriff in New Hampshire if I wanted to. And I think that like where I was at that time is like I wasn't career wise set up where I could do that. So nowadays maybe I could do that, but it's one of those things where it's like I still got, in some towns I got 14% of the vote, so in my county. So it's like this was on a budget of less than $1,000 and me running the entire thing by myself. So, if I had actual like funding, support, volunteers, like, and if I had, like, this is the thing is like, I'm not actually opposed if libertarians want to run as a Republican or Democrat and they can win by doing so, they should do it. Because if they really want to facilitate the change and they want to win, they should just do it. Because like, we're 50 years behind as a party for the Libertarian Party, and I am convicted with the Libertarian Party. This is why I still participated. This is why I'm on the LNC. But everybody has a role to play in making liberty possible. And I'm not naive. I think that like in New Hampshire, especially, there are a lot more opportunities for people to run as Republicans and Democrats and win and actually create change. Like, we had Defend the Guard pass the House this year. Now the Senate shut it down pretty quickly because they got scared of the 5-star generals. But I think that constantly moving in this direction, like we had our first one of our first senators elected last election that was openly a libertarian but ran as a Republican. So, and this is something that's regularly happening. It seems like every year there's more and more people. There's actually close to, I think, 20% almost of the current elected state reps in New Hampshire that openly call themselves agorist, anarchists, or libertarians, which is insane to me. That doesn't happen anywhere else in the whole country. So, and they nullified federal gun laws a year ago. Like they're doing all kinds of cool stuff. And they need to keep chipping away at it. You know what I mean? Whatever the low hanging fruit is, like they did school choice the other year, which is great. And they're expanding on that as well. And as an anarchist, here's the thing too. I don't like think laws should exist, and that's crazy, but I'm not going to stand in somebody's way if they're, trying to make a law exist that benefits what I call liberty. I know this is very biased, and it is, but I'm not going to stand in their way. So I support the hell out of our free staters and our libertarians. And like I said, this is a place where I am actively seeing liberty winning in a lot of ways. And there's ways that they need to improve. There's a lot of things that they need to do better on. I have a lot of constructive criticism I could give people at the Free State Project, at the actual organization, and I do. But this is the absolute best place for people to go if they can make it to New Hampshire, if this is where they want to go and this is what their desire is to do. I don't think that there's another place to go or to move to. I realize it's not realistic for everybody because people have families, and it's really hard to uproot your family and go somewhere else with all that. But that's all I'm saying is, like, even if you can just give it a shot, come out and like go to Porcfest, for a week, just experience New Hampshire, learn about it. Or another thing, we have the Free State Project has a calendar, fsp.org, where if you go on that calendar, it's like every single day of the week, all year long, there's like 5 or 6 events every single day that's hosted. One of them's hosted by a Free Stater, probably in whatever area you're in. And it's crazy. There's always something to do. When I first moved here, I was going to stuff like a couple days a week. Now I'm like socialed out a little bit, and I do my own events and I do my own thing, but it really is like, there's so much going on here. And liberty is so much bigger than a political party. It really is like a community building thing that's going on here. And, I think that it's strengthening more every year. So I've been here. This is going 2.5 years now. And I do my best to help wherever I can. So
that's awesome, dude. And like, I tell people all the time, the Libertarian Party itself is not in a good place. And part of the reason is, in my opinion, I have no receipts on this, but I feel like the party itself has been infiltrated, not only
I
by
think so.
feds, but it's been infiltrated by bad actors from both parties. And and so now I feel like it's time for libertarians to start infiltrating the others, like they're doing in New Hampshire. Like you
Yeah.
said, libertarians are running as, Democrats are running as Republicans. That's what needs to happen, especially like in a situation here in Michigan where the state Libertarian Party itself is not very becoming, especially to
Right.
outsiders.
For
We need
sure.
to start infiltrating the other parties. Like right now, as we speak, the local GOPs, I should say, plural, are not only willing to run our candidates, but they're willing to vote for them locally,
Hmm.
which is huge because
Yeah.
they're tired of their people. Their people are not okay and they know it. Um,
Hmm.
Unfortunately, selling Democrats is going to be very hard because Michigan on the left side has become extremely progressive.
Right. Right.
Extremely progressive. Like we're in the top three worst states, probably number two. There's California, there's Michigan, there's New York. Um, they're all disasters in their own sense when it comes to fascist, communist, socialist dictatorships, totalitarian, whatever you want to call it. Um, but we can do this by infiltrating the other parties like they are in New Hampshire. And you guys are doing amazing things there. Like honestly, I would move there if I didn't want to get away from the winter. That's my thing. Like I can't leave winter to go to worse winters. I'm going south. When I leave here, I'm going south. I need sunshine. I need water, stuff like that. But is it out of the realm of possibility? Maybe not, because I do love what you guys are doing. And I do have a 4-wheel drive truck, so I could just drive through that shit if I
Like I
need to.
said, man, like it was winter was nothing the last 2 years that I've been here. Like I lived in Colorado. I was born and raised in Pennsylvania. I've been all over the country, man. And I will say, like, New Hampshire's winter is really like if you've been through a winter, then it's just another winter. I can't really say it's worse or better. I just know that for sure, like it definitely got less snow here the last 2 years than Colorado did. And I lived in Colorado for 15 years. So
Oh
uh,
wow.
it's yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I love that you get to see all four seasons. Like you don't get that in some parts of the country. Like when I lived in California, you don't get it at all. When I lived in Colorado, you get like 2 or 3 seasons, maybe. But here you get to experience all of what spring is supposed to be, all of summer, all of fall, which in my opinion is the greatest time to be here, is in October, whenever everything, all the things are changing colors and all that. And then winter. Like I have a lot of things about my body that hate the cold, and I can't say that like I'm complaining that much. Like I've got horrible knees. I just beat cancer earlier this year. You know what I
Holy
mean?
shit, bro.
Yeah, I had cancer cut out of my leg earlier this year, and like that all happened during the winter time. So, it's like, when things get cold, things don't work as well as they used to. I'm 35.
Absolutely not.
Um, but I don't know. Winter is winter. I can understand wanting to go and be part of the sunbirds though down in Florida or something, and but just be careful. You got red flag laws down there, and we
Well,
don't
that's
have.
the thing. Well, shit. There's no worse red flag laws than what we got here. I mean, I like
True.
I talked
Yeah.
about it on my last show. Like a buddy of mine's buddy just got picked up on some red flag shit, dude. Him and his
Wow.
lady got into a fight in the driveway. A big shouting match. It was a big shouting match. Anybody who's married or has been with somebody understands you're going to fight with your significant other. You're going to get into shouting matches. That's just part of the game, dude. It's life. It's
Right.
totally life.
Right. But that's
This
all
dude,
that needs to happen for them to take your guns nowadays,
and
unfortunately.
that's what they did. He didn't lay a hand on her. He didn't push her. He didn't grab her. He didn't do anything. They got into a shouting match. The neighbors called the cops. They showed up. They took his guns with no due process and said, "You can come get them when we're ready to give them to you." Pretty much.
Unreal. Yeah, that's
You
horrible.
know? And so, it's one of those things where, like, you know, I'm exploring something myself right now, possibly running for office. I'm
That'd be
exploring.
awesome, dude.
I don't know if well, it all depends if we're going to be here or not. I don't want to be here. So like, I would prefer to get the hell up out of here. But if we are here for some reason, I almost feel like I'm compelled
Are
to
you
do
talking
it.
like 2026 or?
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
Um, but I would love to talk to you guys as governor to see how they're doing it. Like, I want to know exactly how you guys are doing it, because correct me if I'm wrong, there's no property taxes. I know that. No property
Right.
taxes in New Hampshire.
No, there is property tax. It's pretty much the only tax that we do pay.
No state
Yeah.
tax.
No state income tax, no sales tax. Um, there's a lot of other taxes that other people pay that we don't pay. It's pretty much only property tax that we pay here. So
Okay, but even that's a better sell than what most
yeah,
people
I mean,
have.
overall, like property, like we are like the lowest tax burden in the country overall. Um, Property taxes are a little bit more expensive than the rest of the country, but overall, like what you pay in taxes between sales tax and state income tax and all this stuff, you save an astronomical amount of money. Like I can't tell you, like, I can feel my checks, and the checks feel a lot nicer than they used to. Lived in other
Right.
states, for sure. You know what I mean? The money feels like it goes farther. Everything's still expensive everywhere, no matter where you go in the
You're
country.
not
It's the
beating
same,
that. You're not beating that. You can thank
but
well, because you got to thank the federal government and the Federal Reserve.
right,
They're the
right,
ones who are doing this shit.
right.
You know, but that's awesome, dude. Like, I'm really glad, like, to hear that things are going so well over there. You hear a lot of stuff online, but you can only take things online with a grain of salt, pretty much.
For sure. Yeah.
Because you never know. But to hear it from somebody who's actually there living it and stuff like that just kind of, makes it all the better. I don't want to keep you too much longer, man. I really appreciate your time. But before we go, just to keep a music theme going before we go, because we can't end it on politics after all that.
No, yeah, we can't do that.
You are the EmoAncap. That is your name. You are the EmoAncap on
That's
Twitter
me.
or X, whatever you want to call it. Top 5 emo bands. Go.
God. Okay. Well, my number one, whether you call him emo or not, it's Showbread. Emery. Um, I'm gonna say Hawthorne Heights has to be up there because I've played shows with them and they're great people. I will put in there probably Blindside is probably emo. I don't know. This is a stretch on some of the emo. People might not even know who these people are. And
I don't know who some of these people are.
Thrice is fantastic. I love Thrice.
Dude, dude, let me interrupt you real quick.
Yeah.
I never really knew about Thrice. Like, I just didn't know. And as of recent, I've been listening on my Pandora radio on my headphones at work every day. I paint houses for a living, so it's good to just put on some tunes and do your thing. And Thrice has come on a lot, and I didn't really get into them back then, but I think they're awesome now. Like, I've been jamming.
So
like
good.
Silhouette is like one of my like awesome. Like, oh my god, I get pumped when I hear that. Or the Ambulance song. I can't. That's a whole big
Artist in the Ambulance. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like what the hell, man? Like, what did I miss out on back in the mid 2000s? You know what I mean? Thrice.
Silverstein is definitely top 5 for me.
Okay.
Emery, Silverstein, Thrice, Hawthorne Heights, Showbread. I think those would be my top 5. Showbread is one of my favorite bands for sure. Emery is lyrically one of the best bands I've ever heard. Musically, they're very good too. But
I know Emery. I had a regular at a bar I used to work at. We'd talk music or whatever, and he was huge into them. So I do know those guys. When it comes to the emo thing for me, like, I'm a little bit too old for it, but I went through a phase. So like here in Michigan, and actually it was a Canadian station. It was 89X, Windsor, Detroit's new rock alternative. And it was the best alternative rock station ever. It really was. And we had them here for decades. I mean, I was listening to that stuff when I was in middle school, and I can't remember when they finally changed formats. I was so bummed because it's gone now. They turned it into a country station of all things.
Oh, wow.
And the new alternative station they have now sucks. It's garbage. But anyways, like, they used to have all these birthday bashes and Christmas bashes and stuff like that. And so I went to a lot of those shows, and I got to see a lot of those bands like Silverstein, Taking Back Sunday, The Used, My Chemical Romance. Oh my God, Senses Fail. If I were to pick, like, them. some of my favorite emo bands, Census Fail would be up there.
Bayside is great too. Bayside's fantastic.
Bayside was good. They're one of those people, back in the day where you get, you brought up Victory Records earlier, and, Taking Back Sunday was on Victory Records. And then, but a lot of times they'd give you like a sample CD to go with those CDs. Like back in the day, they'd give you samplers with different artists on it and stuff.
Right. Yep.
And that's how I found out about bands like Silverstein, Between the Buried and Me, who is my favorite live metal band of all time. They are amazing live. I don't know if you've ever seen them live, but holy shit, they're so good. But like a lot of that stuff, Census Fail, Brand New. I think Brand New is awesome. Some of their lyrics were pretty like, wow.
Yeah.
But like they were awesome. I'll always appreciate Taking Back Sunday. I've seen them with both their guitar players in 2012. Before we go, even though I already said that, 2012, my wife and I went to a playoff baseball game, the Tigers against the A's. That's when the Detroit Tigers were still good. It was a day game. And after the game, Taking Back Sunday was playing across the street. And I called my cousin. Well, he's my cousin. It wasn't just a friend. Okay, whatever. He's the one who worked for Live Nation.
That's awesome, though. It's okay.
I said, "Yo, man, are you working the show?" He said, "Hell yeah, I'm working the show. You coming through?" I said, "Yeah, I'm across the street." He goes, "Let me get your name on the list." So he hurries up, gets my name on the list. We get into the show. It happened to be the tour where Taking Back Sunday got back together with their original guitar player.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that was cool. And of course, while I had to go to the bathroom, apparently the lead singer was out there in the crowd, like walked right past my girlfriend, said hi to her. I'm married to her now, by the way. She's not my girlfriend anymore, but like
amazing. Yeah.
This is for, the early days of our dating life, and so like a lot of those bands I do appreciate. I really do. And that's probably why I've been listening to so much of it on my, work day or whatever. But Ben, dude, thank you so much for your time, dude.
It's been a pleasure, dude.
Like I'm glad we did this. I hope we can do it again someday, But how can people find you? Let's tell people how they can find you and where, what you're doing.
I am on Twitter at TheEmoAncap. I also have a podcast called Shut the Punk Up, which you can find on YouTube, Odyssey, Facebook. Honestly, it streams anywhere that podcasts stream, pretty much. And then also check out the LP Emo Caucus, because we are the coolest group that exists in all of politics, but we're not political. So come share some music with the Emo Caucus people.
You want to know what, dude? You want to know what? I'm going to join my first caucus if you'll have me.
You are welcome. Absolutely.
I will join the Emo Caucus. Rin Brinley's going to be so excited because
he's going to be stoked.
He's been trying to, you need to join the Emo Caucus. You need to do it. And I'm like, I'm not joining no caucuses. I feel like I've been talked into it at this point. And if it's not political too much and your guys are about kick-ass music and shit, I would love to be a part of that.
You're welcome. You are officially in the club. So
sweet. I can't wait to tell Rin Brinley.
I can't wait for you to tell me that. I want to hear what he says.
But until next time, y'all, peace, love, and liberty, man. Be good. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Love your neighbors, man. Be good.